The horns hit. She spins. There's a flash of light, and suddenly the most powerful woman on television is standing right there in your living room. She was Wonder Woman. And if you grew up watching her, you never fully got over it. But how much do you actually know about the show behind the icon? The casting chaos, the budget disasters, the behind-the-scenes decisions that almost never happened, and the ones that accidentally made television history? Stick around, because what we found will completely change how you see this show. The year was 1975. ABC took a gamble on a comic book character who'd been around since 1941, but had never truly conquered primetime television, and cast a lead actress who, by any traditional measure, had absolutely no business getting the role. What followed was 3 seasons that managed to be simultaneously campy and sincere, ridiculous and heartfelt, low budget, and completely unforgettable. The show jumped networks, jumped 3 decades in a single creative decision, and cycled through cast members, theme song arrangements, and costume elements more times than most shows change locations. And through all of it, Lynda Carter stood at the center, making it work through physical grace, genuine warmth, and an almost supernatural ability to make even the silliest scenes feel completely real. Here are 15 jaw-dropping facts you've probably never heard. Let's saddle up. Number 15. Let's start with the most iconic image in the whole show, the transformation spin. Diana Prince whirls in place, arms extended, head tilted back, a burst of brilliant white light. The music swells, and when the glow fades, the plain, bespectacled secretary is gone, replaced by the most visually striking superhero on television. It's perfect TV magic. Clean, theatrical, and completely satisfying every single time. There's a reason this 3-second moment has been parodied, imitated, and paid tribute to more times than almost anything else from 1970s television. But here's what makes it extraordinary. It was never supposed to exist. When the production team was developing the series, they were genuinely stumped on how to handle the transformation. In the comic books, there's no big dramatic moment. Diana just takes off her glasses, lets her hair down, and puts the costume on. Comics can get away with that because the reader's imagination fills the gaps. TV cannot. Early ideas were uninspiring. A simple film cut where she stepped behind a door, practical but completely unmemorable. A quick change mechanism hidden in her outfit, physically impossible under 1970s clothing. Some scripts just glossed over it entirely. One version had her finding a changing room. Another had her ducking into a supply closet. Heroic stuff. Enter Lynda Carter. She'd been working through the pilot, getting comfortable in the role, and she kept running into the same problem. The transformation felt small. Diana Prince was about to become one of the most powerful beings on the planet, and the show wanted her to find a restroom to change in. Carter came from a dance and performance background, and she started thinking about what the transformation should feel like, not just what it should look like logistically. Every cultural tradition has ceremonies for moments of significant change. The act of becoming something greater deserves a ritual, not a quick change trick. So she pitched the spin, something elegant, deliberate, and theatrical. The production team's reaction was divided. Some loved it. Others thought it was too strange. A fully grown woman spinning in circles in the middle of a scene. Carter's argument was simple. Commit to it completely. If you do a half-hearted spin with a tentative little light effect, it'll look exactly as silly as you're afraid it will. But if every element commits to the idea that something real is happening, audiences will follow you there. The early episodes show the spin still being figured out. It's slower, a little tentative, and there's even a subplot in those early episodes about where Diana's regular clothes go after the transformation. She actually had to retrieve her glasses from a locker. The show was trying to maintain real-world logic about something purely magical. Eventually, the producers did something brilliant. They stopped trying to explain the magic and simply presented it. They upgraded the light burst, tightened the camera work, hit the music cue at exactly the right moment, and quietly dropped the whole "where do the clothes go?" question forever. Nobody asked, nobody needed to. The result was pure TV history. The spin became so iconic that DC Comics eventually incorporated it into the character's official mythology. A technique invented by a frustrated actress during a pilot shoot literally rewrote comic book canon. Lynda Carter spun so hard she changed the source material. Number 14. Here's a TV story that almost never happens. A show leaves one network, joins a completely different one, and in doing so, essentially becomes a different show set in an entirely different historical era. Season 1 on ABC was set during World War II, a deliberate creative choice that gave the show moral clarity and historical weight. The Nazis were unambiguous villains. The period detail added gravitas, but World War II is expensive to recreate on TV. Every scene required period-accurate uniforms, vintage vehicles, 1940s props, and sets built down to the smallest historical details. ABC looked at the budget, looked at the ratings, decent but not exceptional, and did the math. They passed on renewal. enter CBS. They made a counteroffer with one significant condition: modernize it. Bring the show into the contemporary 1970s, ditch the wartime setting, save the period production costs, and lean into the spy thriller, science fiction vibes that were dominating the television landscape. The contemporary setting opened doors the wartime framework had kept shut. The show could now engage directly with the anxieties of its actual audience: Cold War espionage, emerging technology, organized crime, corporate corruption. Diana Prince was repositioned as an agent of the IADC, a fictional government intelligence organization. Gone were the vintage military props. In came gadgetry and a slicker visual language. But this created one immediately ridiculous problem: Steve Trevor. In Season 1, Major Steve Trevor, Diana's primary human ally, was played by Lyle Waggoner. Now the show was set 30 years in the future and needed him to still be there, same age, same actor. The writer's solution was both elegant and completely absurd. They created Steve Trevor Jr. The original Steve had a son who also worked in government intelligence, who happened to look identical to his father, because genetics and TV logic. Nobody questioned it. Nobody needed to. CBS gave Wonder Woman 2 more seasons to spin, pose, and save the day. This time with disco lighting and contemporary threats instead of Nazi villains. The transition worked because the production understood that the character, not the setting, was the real draw. As long as Lynda Carter was at the center, the audience would follow her anywhere. Number 13. If someone plays you just the first 3 notes of the Wonder Woman theme, you'll recognize it within 1 second. That's the definition of a truly great television theme. Immediate, unmistakable, and completely inseparable from the show it represents. What you probably don't know is how frantically that theme came to exist. Composer Charles Fox and lyricist Norman Gimbel were established music professionals buried in other projects when the assignment came in. The timeline to produce a complete, recorded, production-ready theme song somewhere in the neighborhood of 48 hours. By any industry standard, that is essentially nothing. And yet what they produced in that frantic window was genuinely great. The theme tells you exactly what kind of show you're about to watch in 30 seconds. The horns announce something powerful. The rhythm is propulsive and forward-moving. The melody reads as heroic without being pompous. And the lyrics, name-checking satin tights and fighting for rights, gave a complete character portrait in a few dozen words. Vocalist John Baller delivered the lead performance, backed by Marty McCall, Carolyn Willis, and Julia Waters. The recording was tight, the timeline was brutal, and the final product was delivered with barely enough time to make the pilot. But here's where it gets fascinating. The theme didn't stay the same. The original Season 1 version referenced the World War II setting, which made complete sense until CBS moved the show 3 decades into the future. The wartime references had to go. The Season 2 revision stripped them out and modernized the feel. Then midway through Season 2, the production replaced Baller's human vocals with a synthesizer. The late 1970s were a period of enormous excitement about electronic music. Synthesizers felt futuristic. Same melody underneath, but the warm human voice replaced by something sleeker and more electronic. Season 3 brought Baller back as the solo vocalist, the female chorus was dropped, and composer Johnny Harris gave the arrangement a complete fresh treatment. And in 1978, at the peak of the disco era, a group called the Wonderland Disco Band released a full disco remix because the 1970s had a strict discofy everything policy and no melody was safe. 4 versions, 1 melody strong enough to survive all of them. Not bad for something assembled in under 2 days. Number 12. If you're enjoying these facts, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps the channel. Now let's keep going. The bracelets. The bullet-deflecting, spark-flying accessories that punctuated every action sequence with a burst of kinetic energy. What most viewers never knew? Those sparks were completely real. The production was working in an era before computer-generated visual effects existed. If you wanted something to appear in your frame, you had to actually put it there. So the props team rigged Lynda Carter's bracelets with small pyrotechnic charges, essentially tiny built-in explosive devices that would produce a shower of sparks on command. The triggering mechanism was equally clever. Carter wore a small hidden remote control in her palm. When she raised her wrist to deflect an incoming shot, she triggered the charges at the precise moment to create the visual impression of a deflection. Think about what that required. She had to time the trigger precisely with sound cues and camera angles, maintain complete composure while small explosive charges went off centimeters from her wrists, and simultaneously project the calm authority that Wonder Woman always embodied. Any hesitation made the effect look wrong. Any visible flinch broke the illusion. She pulled it off hundreds of times across 3 seasons without a single incident. The Bracelets also underwent a visual transformation between the 2 network eras. Season 1's silver-toned bracelets matched the classical 1940s aesthetic. When the show moved to CBS in the contemporary 1970s, the costume was updated. The bracelets became sleek gold cuffs that felt more premium and visually dynamic under the warmer lighting conditions of the CBS era. The props team redesigned the entire pyrotechnic rigging system from scratch to work within the new aesthetic. No CGI, no digital compositing, just chemistry, timing, and complete trust between an actress and her props team, producing an effect so seamlessly executed that audiences never thought about it at all. That invisibility is the highest compliment you can pay to practical effects work. Number 11. There's a specific kind of creative bravery, or possibly creative recklessness, required to include a famously invisible aircraft in your show, and then actually try to show it on screen. The Wonder Woman production team committed to the premise. They would make visible the thing that was supposed to be invisible, because otherwise how would the audience know it was there? In Season 1 on ABC, this meant a model aircraft suspended by a wire, filmed with carefully chosen angles designed to sell the illusion. Was it completely convincing? No. Was it convincing enough to maintain the show's internal world? For most audiences watching on 1970s television sets, roughly yes. Then came CBS. The Season 2 model was more obviously a toy. Some descriptions compare it to a miniaturized Concorde, presumably chosen to make the jet feel technologically advanced, but it looked very much like something from the toy aisle of a department store, hanging on a very visible string. And the cockpit. When scenes required establishing that characters were inside the jet, the production needed figures in the cockpit to make the perspective work. The solution was logically sound and visually disastrous. A miniature doll positioned in the pilot's seat. In episodes where Steve Trevor was also supposed to be aboard, there were 2 dolls. 2 dolls in a toy plane on a string on primetime network TV. And yet, Lynda Carter sold it every single time. She'd interact with the model as though it were a full-size aircraft, deliver lines about its capabilities with complete sincerity, and treat the string-suspended toy with the same gravity she brought to every other element of the show. That gap between the earnestness of the performance and the limitations of the props is where a lot of the show's particular charm lives. Wonder Woman was too invested in its own mythology to be embarrassed by its own budget. It tried the thing regardless of whether it could achieve it perfectly, and somehow that genuine effort was more endearing than a polished execution would ever have been. Number 10. We're halfway through. If this kind of classic TV deep dive is your thing, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one. Wonder Woman regularly put Diana Prince in situations that required operating in or near water. She was a superhero. The world has oceans. These things were inevitably going to intersect. Costume designer Don Feld, who worked under a single professional name, approached the problem with what seemed like the obvious solution. He designed a red, white, and blue bikini. Patriotic colors practical for water movement consistent with the show's visual identity. The problem was structural, not aesthetic. When filming began in aquatic sequences, it became clear the bikini was not performing reliably as a production garment. The combination of water, physical movement, and the demands of underwater filming created conditions where the costume security could not be consistently guaranteed. In production reality, an expensive problem requiring an immediate solution. Don Feld went back to work and returned with a full-coverage blue wetsuit covered in white stars. The patriotic color scheme and star imagery remained intact, essential to Wonder Woman's visual identity, but the structural vulnerability was eliminated entirely. From a functional standpoint, the wetsuit was the correct choice in every possible way. It stayed in place during active sequences, photographed well under underwater lighting, was durable enough for stunt work, and made Lynda Carter unmistakably recognizable as Wonder Woman even in a completely different environment. And from a purely visual standpoint, Carter made it look as intentional as everything else she wore. That was, by this point in the show's run, essentially her defining quality. Whatever the production put her in, she inhabited it with the same unshakable presence, and the audience never had reason to question whether it was right. Number 9. One of the show's least discussed production quirks is the casting of Queen Hippolyta, Diana's mother, ruler of Paradise Island, and one of the most mythologically significant supporting characters in the show's world. What makes this casting history remarkable isn't simply that 3 different actresses played the same role across 3 seasons. What makes it remarkable is who those 3 actresses were. The first Queen Hippolyta was Cloris Leachman, who appeared in the 1975 pilot. At the time of casting, Leachman had an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress on her shelf. received for her work in The Last Picture Show in 1972. An Oscar winner of 3 years standing, playing the Amazon Queen. She brought quiet, grounded authority to the role, a ruler whose power expressed itself through calm certainty rather than dramatic proclamation. When the series moved beyond the pilot, Leachman was unavailable and the role needed to be recast. The second Queen Hippolyta was Carolyn Jones, best known as Morticia Addams from the Addams Family. Dark, elegantly gothic, possessed of a slightly otherworldly quality that tinged every line she delivered. She was also an Academy Award nominee for Best Supporting Actress for her work in The Bachelor Party in 1957. Oscar nominee, former TV queen of the macabre, new ruler of Paradise Island. Jones brought a mystical depth to the role, a sense that this queen carried the weight of ancient history, that she had experienced things no ordinary human being could comprehend. Season 2 brought the third queen, Beatrice Straight, who had just won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Network in 1976. 2 Oscar winners and 1 Oscar nominee, all in the same supporting role across 3 seasons of a network superhero series. The casting of each actress was driven by availability and immediate production needs, not grand design. And yet the result was a character who was, in every season, played by someone carrying the highest possible credential in American film. For a show where the invisible jet was a plastic toy with a doll inside, the casting department was consistently shooting for Olympus.
Number 8.
Most people answer the "what did Wonder Woman wear?" question with the core components: the one-piece costume, the golden belt, the tiara, the bracelets. But there were 2 additional costume elements that appeared with enough regularity to deserve specific attention, and they had very different fates. The skirt appeared in Season 1 in specific contexts: diplomatic scenes, formal occasions, moments when Diana was representing something institutional rather than actively fighting someone. It was essentially Wonder Woman's version of business formal, a visual signal that she was operating in a ceremonial register. Episodes like Judgment from Outer Space and The Last of the $2 Bills featured it in scenes involving high-level government interaction. When the show moved to CBS in the contemporary 1970s, the skirt disappeared quietly and permanently. The faster-paced contemporary setting simply didn't include the kinds of formal diplomatic occasions that had motivated its existence. The cape is a different story, and it survived. The patriotic red, white, and blue cape debuted in Season 1 and appeared in select episodes throughout the CBS era. On the surface, it served the purpose capes always serve in superhero mythology. It looks spectacular. A figure landing with a cape billowing behind her creates a visual event that transforms a simple arrival into something theatrical. But the cape had a second, more practical function that most viewers never consciously registered. It helped conceal the transitions between Lynda Carter and her stunt doubles. For sequences involving real physical risk, the scene would cut between Carter and her double. A billowing cape, catching air and creating its own movement, draws the viewer's eye to the fabric rather than to the specific physical details of the performer beneath it. Cuts that might otherwise be slightly jarring became smooth because the cape's own motion provided visual continuity. The production team learned to stage cape moments at precisely the points where stunt doubles were most needed. Triple duty, dramatically appropriate, visually spectacular, and practically useful as a production tool. 3 excellent reasons to keep it, and they did.
Number 7.
Here's a fact that genuinely surprises people, including devoted fans. Lynda Carter was not primarily an actress when she landed the role of Wonder Woman. She was a musician, not metaphorically. Before television found her, Carter was a working professional musician building a genuine career. In her high school years in Arizona, she was performing with a band called The Relatives. The drummer was a young musician named Gary Berghoff, who would later become famous as Corporal Radar O'Reilly on MASH. At some point in high school, Wonder Woman and Radar were in the same band. This is a real thing that actually happened. After high school, Carter continued pursuing music professionally, touring with a group called the Garin Gathering and building the performance foundation that serious musicians developed through years of consistent live work. The Wonder Woman years didn't pause her music career, they ran parallel to it. In 1978, right in the middle of the show's CBS run at the peak of her TV fame, Carter released her first solo album, Portrait. This was not a celebrity cash-in. It was a serious artistic project showcasing vocal abilities far beyond what the show's occasional musical moments had revealed. Later albums, At Last, Crazy Little Things, and Red, Rock and Blues explored country, blues, and pop territory, demonstrating sustained artistic development. She headlined multiple musical television specials. The most notable was Lynda Carter, Celebration in 1981, which earned her an Emmy Award nomination for Outstanding Individual Performance in a Variety or Music Program, a completely different discipline, confirming that both careers were genuinely real. Decades later, she contributed original songs to Fallout 4, the massive open-world video game, performing in a 1950s retro-futuristic style that suited the game's world perfectly. She also performed in a West End production of Chicago and London, a venue that does not accommodate celebrities coasting on their name. It requires genuine vocal ability and sustained dramatic performance. The full picture is one of the most underappreciated stories in entertainment. Wonder Woman was a massive, defining achievement, but one achievement among many for a woman whose talents were genuinely comprehensive.
Number 6.
History tends to erase what came before the thing that worked in favor of celebrating the thing that worked. And in the case of Wonder Woman, what came before Lynda Carter has been so thoroughly overshadowed that most people don't even know it existed. In 1974, a full year before the Carter series debuted, ABC produced a made-for-television movie starring Kathy Lee Crosby in the title role. If you're picturing the iconic Wonder Woman visual presentation, the tiara, the Star-Spangled costume, the golden lasso, the bracelets, stop. This version had essentially none of that. Crosby's Diana had blonde hair, wore a red and blue tracksuit, had no supernatural powers, no magic lasso, no bracelets, and no mythological heritage. No transformation sequence, no connection to Paradise Island, just martial arts skills and a vague commitment to justice and athletic wear. The production was loosely based on a period in the comics when Wonder Woman had given up her powers and operated as a human, and the filmmakers interpreted loosely based to mean barely connected to the character's mythology in any meaningful way. The ratings were respectable enough to give ABC useful data. There was genuine audience appetite for Wonder Woman as a TV property. The character had real drawing power. The execution just needed to be completely rethought. The lesson the network drew was straightforward. Audiences wanted Wonder Woman, the actual version, the superpowers, the mythological heritage, the distinctive costume, the lasso that forces truth, not a depowered government agent in athletic wear. 1 year later, they hit reset entirely. New actress, new costume, new powers, new mythology, genuine connection to the source material. The 1974 version had hedged, the 1975 version didn't. And the difference in what those two productions achieved, one a forgotten footnote, one a cultural institution, tells you everything about what happens when you refuse to honor what makes a character actually matter.
Number 5.
We're getting into the really great ones now. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now so you never miss a video like this one. Before she was receiving Academy Award nominations for films that would define a generation of dramatic cinema, Deborah Winger was spinning around in a Star-Spangled romper playing Wonder Woman's kid sister on network television. Yes, really. The character Winger played was Drusilla, also known as Wonder Girl, Diana's younger sister from Paradise Island, appearing in 3 Season 1 episodes, The Feminine Mystique Part 1, The Feminine Mystique Part 2, and Wonder Woman in Hollywood. The character had the lasso, the tiara, and the abilities, but also the wide-eyed curiosity of someone encountering the outside world for the very first time. Winger brought to the role something already apparent even this early in her career: an emotional authenticity that prevented the performance from being purely functional. Drusilla could have been a simple plot device. In Winger's hands, she was a genuinely compelling character. Enthusiastic, occasionally impulsive, learning what heroism actually required in a world far more complicated than Paradise Island had prepared her for. The production team was sufficiently impressed that they developed a proposal for an entire Wonder Girl spin-off series centered on Drusilla. Winger turned it down. Her concern was practical and strategic. She didn't want to spend years as a superhero sidekick before demonstrating her full range. She was looking further ahead, worried that extensive genre television work would close doors she wasn't ready to close. The subsequent evidence suggests her read was exactly right. In the years following her Wonder Woman appearances, Winger built a film career that earned her Academy Award nominations for An Officer and a Gentleman in 1982, Terms of Endearment in 1983, and Shadowlands in 1993, 3 Oscar nominations. One of the most respected dramatic resumes of her generation. What she left behind was a brief but genuinely charming performance, the very beginning of a journey towards somewhere remarkable. Watching those 3 episodes now, knowing what Deborah Winger would go on to achieve, is a specific kind of pleasure.
Number 4.
There's a meaningful difference between performed some of her own stunts, which many action series stars say when they mean a few safe sequences under ideal conditions, and genuinely pushing the physical limits of what's considered appropriate for a principal actress on a network production. Lynda Carter was in the second category. The show maintained a professional stunt team throughout its run. Jeannie Epper and Kim Raimi were the primary stunt doubles, handling sequences involving genuine physical risk. High falls, complex fight choreography, vehicle stunts, anything where safety requirements made it inadvisable to use the lead actress. They were skilled professionals doing exactly what stunt performers are trained to do. Carter worked alongside them, making deliberate choices about which sequences she would attempt herself. Her dance training, developed through years of serious study before her acting career, gave her a physical toolkit most actresses simply don't have. Body awareness, spatial coordination, the ability to move precisely through choreographed sequences repeatedly and consistently. Her fight sequences had a grace and intentionality that came directly from that background. Then there was the helicopter. Season 2 included a sequence requiring Wonder Woman to grab the landing skid of a helicopter as it was taking off and be lifted into the air. Standard procedure. The stunt double performs the actual liftoff, the principal actress appears in controlled close shots, and careful editing creates the impression of one continuous sequence. Carter assessed the sequence, consulted with the stunt team, made her own evaluation, and decided she wanted to do the grab herself. The actual moment of grabbing the skid and leaving the ground, the frame that would need to be completely convincing, was one she wanted to own personally. She did it. The helicopter took off. Carter grabbed the skid with no harness, no safety wire, no backup system beyond her own grip strength. She was lifted off the ground by a moving aircraft and held on for the shot. The footage was extraordinary. The production team's reaction upon learning what their lead actress had done reportedly included significantly elevated stress levels and urgent conversations about future communication protocols. But the shot worked so well, they put it in the Season 2 opening credits, meaning audiences saw a brief glimpse of it every single week for the entire season. Wonder Woman didn't just fight for justice, she also fought for the perfect take. Fact 3. Casting team for the 1975 Wonder Woman series began their search. They were looking at the full landscape of available professional talent in Hollywood. This was a major network series with enormous visibility. Whichever actress got the role would become one of the most recognizable faces on American television. Hundreds of actresses were considered. Among them were women with significant film credits, women who had been working professionally for years or decades, women whose resumes would typically position them as credible candidates for a lead role of this magnitude. Lynda Carter's resume, at the time of her audition, consisted of approximately one TV appearance, a single guest role in a 1974 police drama called Nakia. That appearance had been significant primarily because it established her Screen Actors Guild membership, the union credential necessary for professional film and television work. She had been acting in any meaningful professional sense for less than 12 months. She walked into the audition for the most visible female role in American network TV that year with one credit to her name. Executive producer Douglas S. Kramer has described in various interviews what happened when he saw Carter's screen test. The substance is consistent across accounts. She didn't just seem right for the role. She was the character. The physical presence, the quiet authority, the particular quality of calm confidence she projected. These things weren't the product of accumulated craft. They were native to her, something the camera found immediately and unambiguously. The phrase attributed to Kramer, that she didn't just look like Wonder Woman, she was Wonder Woman, sounds like something a producer says to justify a proud casting decision. But in this case, 50 years of subsequent evidence confirms the assessment was accurate. What Carter's casting demonstrates is a principle the entertainment industry acknowledges in theory but frequently ignores in practice. For certain roles, the match between performer and character matters more than accumulated experience. Technique and training are valuable and real, but they cannot manufacture the specific quality that makes one person, and not another, the person a particular character requires. Carter had that quality in abundance. She went from one guest credit to cultural icon in a single TV season, proving that sometimes it's not about the number of credits you have. It's about whether you can rock a tiara like you were born to wear it. Number 2. By the time Wonder Woman was moving through its third and final season on CBS, the show was facing the challenge that eventually faces every long-running series: declining ratings and a network growing uncertain about renewal. The production's response was bold. They embedded a potential rebooted version of the show inside Season 3, disguising a pilot as regular programming. The most visible changes were geographic and structural. Diana Prince was relocated to Los Angeles, shifting away from the Washington, D.C. setting that had anchored the CBS era. A new authority figure was introduced, Dale Hawthorne, Diana's IADC supervisor, played by John Duran, signaling a different power dynamic. But the most dramatic element was the introduction of Brett Cassidy, a genetically enhanced man whose physical capabilities rivaled Wonder Woman's own. Cassidy was played by Bob Seagren, an Olympic gold medalist pole vaulter from the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, bringing genuine athletic credibility to a character defined by extraordinary physical performance. He was essentially bulletproof and clearly being positioned as a potential co-lead for a reimagined show, a dual protagonist format with two extraordinary beings working together. The production also created a two-part episode, The Phantom of the Roller Coaster, that served essentially as a backdoor pilot, a way to test the new format within the existing production infrastructure without committing to a separate, expensive standalone pilot. CBS looked at the data and wasn't buying it. The ratings hadn't moved enough. They declined to renew. The final episodes aired, some in a different order than originally intended. And then Wonder Woman simply wasn't there anymore. No series finale, no deliberate conclusion, no wrap-up of story threads, no final adventure, no goodbye moment between characters who had been fighting crime together for 3 seasons. The show stopped airing. That was the ending. For fans, the what if of the season 4 reboot is a persistent fascination. Would the dual protagonist format have worked? We'll never know. What we have instead is evidence of a production trying to save itself through bold creative reinvention and a network that wasn't quite convinced. Number 1. 41 years. That's how long passed between Lynda Carter's last appearance in the Wonder Woman TV series and her return to the character's mythology in a way that sent the internet into a full emotional spiral. In December 2020, Wonder Woman 1984, the second film in the contemporary Wonder Woman cinematic series starring Gal Gadot, was released simultaneously in theaters and on streaming. The film itself received mixed reviews, but one element transcended the usual critical discussion entirely. A mid-credit sequence. A woman appears on screen, dressed simply. The scene plays out briefly. She intervenes in a moment of danger with the kind of casual, practiced efficiency that comes when extraordinary ability has been so thoroughly internalized that it requires no drama or announcement. A grateful bystander asks her name. Asteria, she says, and then the audience realizes who they're looking at. Lynda Carter, returning to the Wonder Woman mythology for the first time since 1979. Not playing Diana Prince this time, but playing a legendary figure referenced earlier in the film. An ancient Amazon warrior, the first of her kind, whose sacrifice and legacy had echoed across centuries. The original extraordinary woman, the template from which all subsequent heroism descended. As a piece of casting, it is close to perfect. The woman who was Wonder Woman for an entire generation, now positioned as the ancestor, the foundational, ancient, most fundamental version of the ideal from which Gadot's contemporary Diana descends. The actress who built the mythology, now embodied within it as its mythological origin. The audience reaction when the sequence became widely discussed was remarkable in its intensity. People who had grown up with the 1975 television series, now in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, found themselves genuinely moved in ways that surprised even them. It wasn't simply nostalgia. It was the closing of a loop that had been open for decades. Lynda Carter didn't just play Wonder Woman. She helped define what the character means, what she looks like in motion, what her presence communicates, how she makes people feel. Every subsequent interpretation of the character has been in conversation with what Carter built. Whether consciously or not, she walked into a superhero film in 2020 with no costume, no effects, no origin story, just herself, and the accumulated weight of what she had spent decades representing. And she was unmistakably, completely, exactly Wonder Woman. That's the power she built. One spin at a time, one bracelet spark at a time, 3 seasons of television that the world somehow never forgot. And that's 15 facts. 15 stories from behind the scenes of one of television's most genuinely extraordinary productions, extraordinary not because it was perfect, but because the people who made it kept believing in it anyway. Wonder Woman ran for 3 seasons across 2 networks. It spanned 3 fictional decades. It burned through 3 different actresses for a single supporting role and cycled through 4 different versions of its own theme song. Its special effects ranged from elegant to inadvertently hilarious. And it was anchored through all of it by an actress who had been working for less than a year when she got the role, and who proceeded to make it one of the most iconic performances in the history of the medium. Lynda Carter didn't just play a superhero. She embodied something the cultural moment of the mid to late 1970s was genuinely hungry for. The image of a woman who was powerful without apology, confident without cruelty, heroic in a way that invited everyone watching to see themselves reflected. The show was imperfect in about 50 different ways, and it didn't care. It was too busy being something meaningful to worry about being something flawless. Half a century later, that spin still has power. That theme still has power. And Lynda Carter, in a blue cloak in a 2020 mid-credit sequence, still had power. Because some things, done with enough genuine commitment and enough genuine heart, don't really end. They just wait for you to come back to them. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. More classic TV history is on the way. Until next time, keep your tiara polished, your lasso ready, and never stop believing in the spin.